Alrighty then. Good morning.
Good morning.
Corinna Perkins.
Yes.
Yes. I was wondering, your title, hold on, let me just set the microphone a little bit towards you. Perfect. Right there, so we can actually, the title, elite athlete, right?
Did I write that somewhere?
I'm like, yeah, that kind of describes you, like an elite athlete. I'm like, yes, you seem to be doing so many different things to push your body and your mind to it's like a David Goggins. Am I hitting the right spot here? I mean, obviously, from what I'm seeing on your Instagram, I mean, you're doing so much physical excellence, I call it, and then you're pushing your body so much, but you're also doing the whole
Tactical.
I'm like, wow, that's intense. I mean, first of all, you don't see a lot of women not only wanting to do it, I'm sure some of them want to do it, but being able to do it is a whole nother animal altogether. Like you have to have some type of did you grow up with boys and brothers and what is it?
Yes, actually.
Can you first of all explain to me what is an elite?
You know, that is a very vague term. So I think it's funny because, professional, when you say you're a professional athlete, you're like, okay, you're getting paid for this.
Right.
An elite athlete, I probably wouldn't even say that about myself now, but I think it kind of the connotation is that you're competing for a podium spot. Like when you show up to certain events, you are a contender,
right?
And you like to finish high up in whatever you're doing.
But is it a competition thing for you?
Yes. For me, I love the competition.
Oh, you love the competition.
I love the competition. I'm a very competitive person. I did grow up with boys. I have 3 brothers and I'm the only girl. My dad was an athlete. He's an equestrian 3-day eventer, double Olympic gold medalist. So we grew up, we used to joke with him that we're like, oh, Dad's not competitive. And he's like, I was literally at the highest level of competition, but that was very much, a very active household growing up.
But this is way beyond health for you, clearly. I mean, yes, you're a nutritionist, right? That is also your
dietitian,
business,
yes.
your dietitian,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem like obviously that's part of being an excellent athlete.
Sure.
I get that. But way beyond most people's need, and for
Sure.
you, this feels like a need almost, right?
I think that's evolved over time. Like, I'm 32 now. I've been competing in different sports, but at that quote unquote elite level since I was 20. And so it was very much that competitive drive early on in my 20s. Now, as pregnant with our first child and, running my nutrition business, the competitive desire and drive has fallen as a lower priority compared to other things. But I still have that innate competitiveness in me for sure.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that's like still far for me, because if you ask me about somewhat, men's drives and men's psychology and men's health, I kind of get the gist. Well, I'm a guy, but females, and that's a different altogether because muscle mass, different type of bodies, right? Different psychology.
Yeah. But it's fun seeing a lot of women in the fitness and competition space. I feel like it's just constantly growing and evolving. We mentioned that earlier, just like how this fitness boom and this explosion of competitive fitness now is taken over. And it's really amazing to see the women, particularly for me, in these different sports, rise to the top and see that not only, among men, but with them as well. So, and there are some really tough ladies out there.
So do you get a lot of that, because obviously for men, I'm just trying to see this simile here. Like there's a relaxing element to it after it's all done. You're like, oh my God, this is so fulfilling, relaxing, endorphins hitting and all this kind of type of thing, right? Is it the same for you? Do you feel like, yeah, I get that same, I feel more relaxed after it, or no?
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing, when I think back to my most competitive days, it was so much go, go, go. Like it was, the moment you compete and you're on the podium and it's like, there's always that pressure of like, okay, now I got to stay here. Or if you just miss the podium, it's like, oh no, I gotta get back to gotta get back to training and figure out what went wrong. And so that I can pursue something more for the next event. And so relaxing is something I'm doing more now in this era for me. But especially with the clients I work with who are very competitive as well, or some of them are, it's kind of this, like, I want more relaxation for them. I want more of like an off season period for them to do that, because it really is so go, go, go during the season.
Really?
Yeah. There's not a whole lot, you're either at the top and you're just, now I got to keep people from taking my title, or you're not there yet and you just got to keep grinding. And so I wish there was more of that. I wish people were able to really sit in their accomplishments, or just take a deep breath before jumping into the next thing. But unfortunately, that's more.
Yeah.
We see that less.
I mean, these competitions, they look like they're more like whole body training. It's not like a lifting or only this or only that. It's kind of like you have to be well-rounded to be able to compete, right? It's long distance running, it's heavy lifting, what is it? Can you?
Yeah. And I think that's where that term hybrid fitness has kind of come into play, because it really is a hybrid approach to training where, there's a strength component, there's an endurance and speed component. And now it's about finding the individual who is the fastest, but also can accomplish, the strength components without missing a beat. And so it's creating a very, an athlete who has to kind of do it all and be pretty good at it all. And that's really hard to do from a training perspective, to try to get faster and build your endurance, but also to get stronger. It's
right.
They
How do they decide the fine line between, how much can you, because you can take supplements, you can do all these things. How much enhancement is, allowed?
Mm-hmm.
How do they
they're
decide?
pretty strict. I mean, they're pretty strict with so when we're talking, I'm kind of, for your audience, I'm kind of thinking about, this new craze of high rocks fitness, or it's a style of hybrid racing where, you're running about 5 miles. High rocks is a type of race. It came over from Germany and has exploded worldwide and definitely into the US. But, there's about 5 miles of running involved. And then there's 8 different pretty intense fitness stations, and you're constantly going back and forth between the running and the fitness. So, nutrition plays a huge role in just keeping up with the demands that, the energy demands that you're expending with this type of training. Supplements are always at the very top of that pyramid of like, you can
But what's
get
considered healthy nutrition? What was that? If I grow a new type of breed of plant that will give me superpowers, am I allowed to do that?
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking. Like, where do they draw the line to say that this is natural?
Yeah.
Or this is like, how do they know? Who are the people that decide?
So at least when I'm thinking about high rocks in particular, or some of these other hybrid events, like they are some of them that are gaining a lot of popularity worldwide, especially like they do have drug testing that they do to make sure that people are staying within the parameters of, what's allowed, what's legal in sport. Is that what you're asking about?
No, absolutely. Yeah. But like when you say drug testing, let's say it's not a drug. Yeah. I mean, technically speaking, food is a drug. Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's nutritional. There's value in it because it's natural, but it does give you the because if you're training, you're like, okay, I'm going to eat this at this time. I'm going to drink this at this time. Why? Because of the nutrients and the vitamins and things you need from it, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put food's not a drug, but you definitely, there are absolutely strategies when we're talking about the athletes who are performing at the quote elite level.
Right.
That is something like you can't afford to have the nutrition not be addressed or to forego that and just rely solely on, your training to get the job done, especially with these. So there's a lot of strategies you can take nutrition wise to, to support that type of training. But yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, it's like, you have increased macronutrient and micronutrient demands. And so you need to make sure that you're covering all your bases, but also supporting, the calorie expenditure that you're going through when you're training.
Okay. Tell me if I'm getting it straight.
Yes.
Okay. Anything that's man-made is a drug they consider? Is that how I'm understanding it?
I don't.
How?
I don't think so. Like, like food can be engineered. We have engineered food, right? A lot of our processed
And is
foods.
that allowed?
That is allowed. Yes,
Okay.
That is not. Yeah, we wouldn't consider that a drug.
Okay.
But, and supplements too. Like the supplements aren't considered drugs. They're in their own separate category. But supplements, like as I mentioned, that's when you're talking like that final performance percentages.
Right.
But if you don't have the base in nutrition, you're missing the biggest component that you can, as far as enhancing your performance.
So your you could say your job, what you're doing for people. Is it beyond just nutrition? Is there a mindset training you have to kind of also help them with, or not really?
I'd say it's definitely, it goes beyond nutrition, because to get to know an individual and to really help them with their nutrition, I mean, think about how many things in our day influence the choices we make around our food, our behaviors around food. Are competing, but also working full-time jobs, right? This isn't really a space where most people are getting paid full-time to compete. Right. And so it's like, how do we support all the things that are necessities throughout your day, and your activity, and so it's making sure that and we're looking at sleep, we're looking at opportunities for recovery, extra body work that you're getting outside of your training. And we have to, your bowel movements and your gut health status. It's like, there's so many things that interfere or influence your nutrition and go along with it. So I need to take that whole scope, when I'm helping an individual. And
sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. A lot of my clients are like, I know this isn't a therapy session. And it's like, but I have to get to know, to help someone with behavior changes around food, which is ultimately how we're going to address changes in their diet. I have to know, a little bit about how they grew up around food and their struggles and their mindset around food. So it does become really big picture approach.
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, this is a whole body health. Yeah.
It is. I love that relationship that I get to build with my clients. And it's an investment. It's time consuming, and no doubt. But I think to do a really good job helping an individual, like you really have to there's a lot of programs out there that are like, give me your height, weight, age, activity level, and I'll come up with a nutrition plan for you. But those aren't the ones that are very successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's going to be tailored to each individual separately.
Definitely.
That's for sure. Yeah. If a person is going into serious competitions and things like that, I mean, how often do you see that somebody has like 3 kids and they're doing this kind of stuff?
Yeah. All the time.
No.
All the time. It's incredible to see what some individuals are juggling and also putting themselves through. I mean, this is voluntary, right? This is a choice. This is a hobby. But I have a lot of individuals who are traveling, weekends out of the month, even, with families with full-time jobs to get to compete on, a Saturday or Sunday, truly because they love and crave that competitive component that we were talking about earlier. And so my job is to try and make nutrition fit in seamlessly with all the things that are going on, instead of having this whole other component that they're like, you know, maybe they have young kids and picky eaters. And so it's like, okay, how do we work their nutrition needs in with the rest of the family? And, you know, how do we also, like, I really support, you know, I grew up with family dinners every night. And so it's like, I would obviously want someone to be able to eat with their family, even if, you know, and make that work even with picky eaters or young kids.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so a lot of it is kind of coming up with a schedule, a meal and snack schedule that supports their training, supports their recovery, supports what, you know, their work life throughout the day, and family life, of course, too.
You know, you see these, what's that guy's name that tries to stay young forever?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. But
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm watching some of his content, and he says, you know, micronutrients, and then every single, you know, he analyzes the hell out of something. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow. I mean, you don't do that. I mean, when clients come to you, it's more like you wouldn't go and take the actual product, an apple, let's say they're eating, and say, this apple quality versus this apple quality.
No. I try to make it very, you know, obviously I try to meet the individual where they're at. Some people are like love data. And so of course, like we can get nerdy about food pretty quickly, but at the same time, it's like a lot of things, you know, I had to learn a lot of the science behind food through all my schooling, but is that something that the general person has to know in order to figure out how to implement, you know, certain foods into their diet, or understand concepts about what their needs are when it comes to nutrition? Like, definitely not. So,
but there's quality in foods.
Definitely. So it's right. But it's also,
where's that line that you draw?
Yeah. But it's also like, you know, some people really feed off of knowing all the details and all that information. And some people are just like, I kind of want to know a general sense just so I understand why it is you're asking me, or why it is you want me to do this with my diet or incorporate this. But, you know, sometimes just data for data's sake isn't always helpful. So, and, you know, some people, you know, it's like, if I were to learn what you do every day, like I would just be like paralyzed with new information. Like, that is not my scene. So I understand that a lot of people never had any type of background education in nutrition, which is, you know, wild to me because it's so applicable in everyday life for every single person. But, you know, I also don't want to inundate someone with that information if they're just trying to get by with all the other things in their life. So education to the degree that they're interested in it. I always want the person I'm working with to understand why it is they're doing what they're doing.
Yes.
Because then you're more invested.
Since we're on this topic of data, I have to ask this in every podcast episode. Do you see AI taking over your job?
That has been very interesting lately. The capabilities of AI are incredible. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, like, there's such a deep connection and relationship that's, I feel like, is required for me to do my job effectively. And there's a lot of different scenarios that I can help a person troubleshoot when it comes to their nutrition. But it is incredible what you can plug in. I have clients who are like, oh yeah, you know, I'm not a macro coach only, but, you know, we do focus on macronutrients with certain individuals, and it can be a great tool to help guide a nutrition plan. But, you know, some clients be like, oh yeah, I was trying to find a meal that met these macronutrients. So I just asked ChatGPT and it told me exactly what I should make and this and that. So, you know, I'm definitely all in support of it as like to supplement with coaching, but I think that, it'll be interesting where it probably could take over my job at some point. Yes. But I think asking the right questions is hard, right? If an individual has this bot that's super knowledgeable and can pull from a lot of different data out there, but they don't really know where to start. A lot of people are like, they come to me.
Not yet.
Right. Not yet.
So what they're doing is they're creating agents, and each agent would be in charge of a specific task. So for example, if the job, the person says, I want to get lean or whatever, or so there's an agent that's all they do.
Sure.
That's all they do. And they're not trying to be anything else besides this.
Sure. What's interesting though, I think a lot of my clients who I work with, going back to the competition space, I've been in circulating different avenues of fitness since I was, for the last 12 years. And people really value that as far as, they want someone with the education background, with the knowledge, the application, obviously seeing someone who puts what they're talking about and helping others with into practice, which is, I love, I started off in this space because I was just wanting to learn this for myself, right? I was an aspiring athlete and I wanted to get better, and I wanted to get the most out of my performance. And so I knew nutrition played a role, but I didn't know exactly, what to look for within that. And so, got my master's degree in sports nutrition and dietetics. And really it was during that time frame where I got to really deep dive into it. But what I'm saying is, like, as I've evolved from obstacle course racing and triathlon and different hybrid fitness events and tactical events, it's like those individuals appreciate that I've been in that competition. I know what that feels like. I know the physical demands of that. And a bot's not going to be able to, going back to AI, they can pull textbook data, but there's so much about nutrition that is human application. It's like, I know the textbook says this, but this is what's realistic to implement. And I don't think you're going to get that elsewhere.
Got it.
And that's part of the reason why it's been fun. I mean, I've always just followed my heart when it comes to competition, because I love pushing my body in different ways. And it's been fun to see all the different ideas that people have and events out there that give us an avenue to do that. And, I don't shy away from being bad at something or failing at something, because I think it's a great opportunity to acquire a new skill. And I'm not trying to be the best in the world at any one thing. I just want to do it all and see what I'm capable of, and learn new things in the process, meet new people. And so it's been a really wonderful decade or more of getting to do that.
Do you notice the difference between a general population and the people who are in this type of sports?
A lot of differences.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to get into this whole psychology of this whole thing, because obviously what profession you're in and whatever you're doing most of your time influences how you are and how you think and all this kind of stuff, how you are in the world. So I'm curious about that. How does that affect norms and, things like that? But it's beyond than just the body. There's obviously a symbiosis between the mind and the body. And the person who is so highly physically engaged, there's mental competition, but there's physical competition where now, and there's that lifestyle. So an obvious thing would be like, a female who is, or a male who is heavily in this type of sports or anything like that. How does that affect their personal relationships? Very interesting question.
It is.
How does that affect, anything else they get into business? They're probably very competitive in general, their perspective on social norms, right? You can pick any one of those.
Well, it makes me think about nurture versus nature, right? Like, are we born? Is this something we're born with? I think about my family, like all my brothers. I think about my dad. I think about my familial history, but then I also think about my upbringing too. And my upbringing was I was constantly being the youngest and the only girl. It was like, if I couldn't keep up, then I couldn't hang out with my brothers, right? It was all about like, okay, well, I'm going to do what they're doing because I got to prove myself so that I can belong. And so I don't know if that ever leaves you once you have that. And of course it's different for everyone, but I distinctly when I think back to my childhood, I'm like, makes total sense why
Right.
I am the way that I am in sport.
So have you spoken to, let's say, mothers, women who have been in your position, then they became mothers
Yes.
or wives?
Yes.
Hello, that changes things. So now
Definitely.
you have this massive biological change, right? That's not going to change your physicality, your mindset.
Right.
So now you might have other things you're attaching yourself to beyond than just belonging with your brothers. Now you're
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the next part of it, right? So okay, how does that change? For men, also there's a thing, right, where they say, "Oh, men get these dad bods when they're mothers." They see
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
Like, okay, so there's something there. There's
Yeah.
obviously
There is. And as I told you initially, it was like, maybe at one point in time, I was Corinna, the elite athlete. Now in this stage of life as a wife and soon to be mom, priorities shift, and they should, they need to. Obviously, like there's some women who are still incredibly competitive and they're in the competition space as moms, and it's amazing to see, but they have their challenges for sure. Like you have to, some people, I think it's easy to look from the outside and be like, wow, that person's just crushing it. They're doing this and that. It's like that dynamic is very different, especially when you have, a husband who's in the military, like in my case, it's like, okay, now, competitions used to run my world. And now it's like, oh, I want to spend time with my husband. I want to be there for my family. I want to, nutrition is more than just a gateway to performance for me. It's nourishment to live a long, healthy life, to increase your health span, not just your lifespan. And I want to pass that on to, my kids. I want to make sure that that's a priority in our household for my husband as well. And so you just, things shift. But that, like I said, that competitor in me doesn't just die, but we push that part down a little bit because there are things that matter more.
sure. See, I put clarity as the highest priority for anything that I do in life. For me, the best goal is to be very self-aware. To do that, you have ultimate clarity. So how do you do that? And first of all, I'm curious, do these athletes who are so, micromanaging the hell out of their life to performance, but does that correlate to clarity? I'm trying to understand that.
Yeah.
Do they get ultimate clarity about life, or is it just performance physically?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, I think back to, I can only speak on that for myself, but I would say that there's, when I was in my peak performance, there's a lot of things that I didn't know why I was the way that I was or perform. I didn't know there was a lot of self-awareness that still needed to happen and still does need to happen, even, for me today. But I think sometimes we're just everything's just instinctual and we're just like, well, I don't know. That's why I think when you said, do people just relax and after they compete and there's this like deep breath and opportunity to just sit back and relax. And that would be great if we could do that and then have that period of reflection to really break everything down about, the performance we just had or understanding why our mindset was a certain way.
Are you saying that don't do that?
No, I'm saying that I can, like I said, I can only speak to myself. I didn't do that when I was in my, like that was sometimes the pace of things is just so fast. You're just already thinking about the next thing. And, you might have a coach that helps you realign your training goals or, your day-to-day focus. But sometimes I see this in my clients a lot too, but there's so much in our day. Our days are so full that oftentimes we're not setting aside that time to find that clarity and understand ourselves. And that's, I try to bring that in with nutrition because, right, knowing how being really in tune with the body is such an important component of giving your body what it needs. If you're not listening to the signs and the signals that your body's giving you, and you can't interpret how you're feeling, like we have all these fancy gadgets and data trackers that tell us things, but if we're so disconnected from our bodies and recognizing the feedback that we're getting just by feeling, just by having a clear mind, we're missing such a big piece of the equation. And that's what I try to really help my clients hone in on. And that's obviously very important to me as well. So I'd say over the years, that's become a much greater emphasis for me, both as an athlete, as an individual, and as a coach.
I'm curious to see how your perspective and mindset is going to change after you have more kids.
Oh,
you know?
I'm
very curious
excited.
about
I say,
that.
bring it on. I'm excited for motherhood.
Yeah. So when I think that your husband probably understands it because he's himself is in very, physical world.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't important for him, or was it important for him to be with somebody who is also understanding that world? What do you think?
That's a good question. I don't know that it was. I mean,
For
it
you,
definitely
it probably was important, right?
Yes.
I mean, it would be hard for you to date somebody.
Right.
It would be like, he doesn't understand weightlifting, right?
Exactly. Or just
lifting anything heavy.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't know that was like a deal breaker for my husband. We met actually through CrossFit. We actually met at a competition of all things. So it definitely drew us together and is something that we share a common ground with. But I don't know that, I know a lot of couples who don't share that. And it works. And it works. I think, but I think being able to prioritize the relationship in the family is key. And I think that's where it's a struggle, myself included, with balancing, trying to fulfill the athlete side of things, but also make sure that my priorities are in check, making sure that I'm prioritizing the marriage, the relationship, being around, like being present.
Out of curiosity, the couples that you know, is it the man who's the athlete or the woman?
I know a lot of women who are the athletes. And then one of them usually comes, like, I would love my husband would join in on some of my competitions, but he's oftentimes that's not an option. You can't just fly around and jump into this and jump into that. There's not a whole lot of local events, and some things it's like, well, having a physical job, I think, changes things. Because if you have a physical job, you're probably not trying to do a bunch of competitions in your free time. Whereas for me, it's like my job, it's a desk job. It's I'm on Zoom calls. I'm talking to clients, but
so these clients that come to you, right? What is the top things that they're looking for? What do you notice that you work on the most? Which exact part?
So a couple different things. One, I would say, like, most recently is that a healthy relationship with food, because I think a lot of people grew up watching their parents or mom diet, and diet culture is now, seeping into young.
Oh, you mean like not eating? What do you mean by diet?
Or like, dieting, or just like, obsessively tracking food intake, or restricting, how many fad diets that are out there where it's like, I'm not eating any carbs, or I'm tracking every calorie that I consume, or it's all about getting
And you don't think
skinny.
that's important? That's not.
No, I do. I think that is important. That's what a lot of people are coming to me, because they've had these challenging relationships in their past, and they're seeing it in their adulthood, and it's hurting their ability to nourish themselves properly. So a lot of it is that helping is focusing on supporting that relationship, building a better relationship. What information, we have a culture with social media now where there's like this inundation of information, and especially when it comes to nutrition. And then you see this person doing that, and you see this person doing that, and you say, this is the best thing for your health. And then the next person's like, no, it's not, there's something else. And so it's really challenging for people to navigate the nutrition space and figure out what's best for them.
So is there a baseline, or are you saying it's more like, specific to the individual?
It's totally specific to the individual. And, it depends on what your goals are too. And I think the challenge is we hear a lot of nutrition information out there, but it's not like, this is what this is who the audience is for. Like, this is who we're saying this for. Like, this is the type of person that, like, we're just making claims and then throwing it around. Everyone's like super confused as to like, well, should I avoid carbs? Should I include carbs? Like, I thought they were good for performance, but this person's saying that you gotta, cut them all out. And so people just don't know, we're not specifying who, someone who's diabetic versus someone who's, working out 6 days a week and is doing competitions. They're going to have a completely different and need a completely different approach. So
you would start with the baseline of saying, guys, girls, do not listen to any of this. It's all relative.
It is relative. And I would say we need to be very selective about who and what sources we're getting our information from.
Well, all these people online sound very credible to me.
They are. Some of them.
50 degrees and experience of 50,000 clients. And I don't know.
Yeah. But I think too, you have some individuals who are good coaches, as in like they get their clients results, maybe it's fat loss, which usually like, those are the ones who have all the great before and after photos. But it's like, there's a lot of people who look physically healthy under the guise of a fit body, a muscular body, and can have an incredibly challenged relationship with food, and body image and self-worth. And, you might see like, wow, that person, they're keep doing you. And it's like, you don't know that they're struggling with a eating disorder or disordered eating, or they have orthorexia, where they're just obsessively working out to maintain a certain physique, but it's not health. And so that's one of the first things I seek to understand with clients is like, what is that relationship like? Are you someone who's like, you eat and then you're like constantly berating yourself in your mind of like, I shouldn't have eaten that. I feel guilt, shame on me for eating that. And, feeling the sense of guilt when you eat certain foods, or are you able to be at peace with some of those decisions and choices? That's a great place to start.
You think it's just guilt, mostly guilt? Is that what you're thinking people are?
I think there's a lot of guilt associated with certain foods for a lot of people. Like people like to put,
I thought you're just not feeling well. So you're saying there's now another element to it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Foods can physically make you feel well or not, but it's like, I think a lot of times, especially with really delicious, indulgent foods, oftentimes people eat that and then they feel worse about themselves because they are like, I shouldn't have had that.
So funny.
But I
never have that.
No. Well, good. That's probably
just never feel bad about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a blessing really to not have all of these emotions wrapped up in our food and having them determine, how we feel about ourselves. But the reality is that we're seeing that more and more.
I thought it was strictly just black and white. Like they just don't feel good. Like they feel foggy brain or they feel gut issues. I thought that's what it was.
Yeah.
They're very in tune with their bodies. They're like, this is not working for me. So they're trying to figure it out. Now you're telling me that there's also psychological. They're literally like, I'm like, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about, when people like, oh, I hear these foods are bad. And so I'm automatically going to, when I eat something, even if it was the most delicious thing ever and I don't have any stomach issues from it, I'll still feel that guilt and shame associated with eating that because I know I shouldn't have, or I know that wasn't good for me. And that's what they're saying in their head. And a lot of that comes from diet culture. It comes from their parents or their, coaches or social media, where it's like, I look back to my childhood and I'm like, I wasn't even aware of any type of diet culture because my parents, that wasn't, we just ate, we had family meals. We ate, my parents cooked every single meal. They packed our lunches. We ate as a family.
Right.
It was really good, wholesome, nourishing food. And so it wasn't until college, actually, when I took my first nutrition course and was told to track my food intake for a couple of days. And then I was like, whoa, I had no idea about calories and macronutrients and micronutrients. And now I can manipulate this and there's changes that can occur in my body. Like, oh my goodness. And there was a period of unhealthy eating for me. And when I look back on that freshman year, a little bit into my sophomore year, it was like having that understanding. Like, I'm so grateful that didn't come earlier, like in high school, because it wasn't a great period. But then I was doing a lot of activity and I was like, screw this. I can't support, like I can't possibly do all these things that I want to do and keep calorie intake low. And so it just became all about how can I support my performance? So I'm grateful for.
Do you have people that come to you that are not athletes?
Yes.
Because obviously the needs of how men and women want to look like are different.
Definitely.
Right?
Yes. But similar concepts, right? Like a lot of people just like want to lose fat and gain muscle, and that's across the board, men and women. Obviously their physique's going to look different.
Right.
But my credentials within, so I'm a registered dietitian, but I'm a sports dietitian within that. I don't love the term. I kind of swap out sports dietitian and I say performance dietitian because I don't work with just athletes, and their performance is such a greater umbrella term as far as, you as a working professional. It's like if you hired a performance dietitian or you're looking to improve your performance, that could be in the scope of your work, like your businesses being energized, having the ability to sustain a very long business day, make decisions that are going to impact, your. Well,
I told you clarity for me is
right. And clarity. Yeah. How do you achieve clarity? Yes, that is that awareness piece, that consciousness piece, but also, your nutrition is going to impact your brain function and cognition.
Ever promote fasting?
For certain individuals, if that's something, that's always a very popular question and topic. For athletes, not never. Usually. Never. I wouldn't say never, because it's not black and white like that. It's like for individuals who there's less scenarios where I would promote fasting or like some sort of time restricted eating for athletes, than not, right? Like I wouldn't. For the most part, there would be very few scenarios where I would recommend fasting for an individual who's performance driven and performance focused.
Got it.
Now, for someone who is not training, they're just like exercisers, right? A couple days per week, and have busy lives outside of that, and their goal is not to perform the best in the gym. Absolutely, fasting can be, or some sort of time restricted eating can be incorporated into a person's day. And especially for individuals who, think about it, it's just such an easy method to restrict calories, right? You're condensing the time window that you're consuming food, and inevitably that's probably going to create some sort of caloric deficit that wouldn't be there otherwise. So, you as a busy professional, might not be able to be like, Corinna, I'm not going to track all my food intake for the day. Like there's no way I can do that. I'm doing this, that, meeting after meeting, running around here and there. So if I were to say, Eli, I want you to just keep your food intake in a 12, 10, 8-hour window, there would be just inadvertently like a caloric restriction implemented there. And that would be very easy for you, to adhere to, rather than trying to track and stay at a certain calorie amount. So I think it can be a very effective tool for weight loss. Not so much a great tool for improving performance or building muscle mass. And so again, it's going to kind of depend on the individual.
Right. Unless the individual wants it all.
Like yeah. Then there's nuances for sure.
Yeah. So what is the overall consensus on nutrition?
Gosh, the overall consensus.
Yeah.
Where to start?
What would you advise?
Where does
what would you say?
Gosh.
Something that's unprovocable and
yes,
unchallengeable is just this will work and works and has worked type of thing. What do you think it is?
Well, I would say first of all, going back to your clarity point, it's like we need to understand ourselves and what we're doing and our habits around food. If anyone wants to address something, right? If you're trying to improve in a certain area, you need to know what you're currently doing in order to make that next step from there. And a lot about nutrition is like, what can we sustain or what can we be consistent with over time? And so if you don't even know what you're currently doing or what your habits and patterns are, good luck trying to come up with a goal, achievable goal, a realistic goal that you can aim for and execute on a day-to-day basis. So one of the first things I do with clients is start with a baseline of like, okay, I need to see what you're doing for a couple days, just so I can see kind of your habits, your patterns around food. And that could look like tracking in a fitness app, or a nutrition app. That could look like literally writing down what time you eat and what you eat throughout the day for a couple days. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, but it could just be literally as simple as writing it down. And that way we can kind of see, usually from there, people are always like, wow, I didn't realize I, have such a big gap between breakfast and lunch. And no wonder I'm hungry at 4:00 right before dinner and I just snack, right? Or I didn't realize like I'm so hungry at the end of the day, but it makes sense. I'm looking at my food log here and, I just snack for breakfast and lunch, and then I expect to be satisfied come dinner in the evening. And obviously that's not the case. So I think that awareness piece is huge. We need to know, or a great starting point is knowing what it is you're doing so that we can make some small adjustments that will make a really big difference in someone's nutrition. So that's a great place to start, is like identifying the problem areas.
Yeah.
Pick the low hanging fruit. Like that's what anyone can do, is just by, hey, you know what? I'm going to actually have a full breakfast instead of just a snack, because I realize my hunger just picks up by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that would be a great tip. I think it's pretty, unanimous that whole foods are going to be the best thing, are the most important focus point when it comes to our nutrition. So,
Can I shoot something at you and you tell me what
please.
you think?
Yeah.
If I say in the grand scale of things, buy pasture raised, organic, number one. Number two, lift heavy. Number three, like the most basic, am I on the right track here?
Yeah, when it comes like all lifestyle related, or just from a nutrition standpoint, or
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I mean, isn't that just basics of like,
Yeah, I think, moving your body. And I don't know, it has to be like, lift heavy. Yes, I love lifting heavy. I think that's so important for everyone to do, but some people can't. And, some people don't have access to certain things. So it's like, move your body, right? Like that's general, even if you're at a desk all day or you're on calls all day, it's like, can you get up and do a couple laps around the house? Like, great, move your body. Our bodies are meant to be active. We need to move. You mentioned like organic, pasture raised, X, Y, and Z. It's like, I think even before that, it's just eat whole foods. Like that should be the majority of our diet. And unfortunately, it's so easy to get focused on convenience foods, right? And snack foods and this and that ends up being a big.
Yeah, but you're in America. I mean, there's
right.
The foods, unless you're like finding local farms that are, what they're producing, it's all generally speaking, not exactly like pasture raised. And
yeah,
but
even if it's not, it's like any apple is going to be better than a bag of chips, right? So it's like, I don't think we always, if we're thinking about blanket statements that everyone can implement, it's like, okay, focusing on that whole foods first. I'm a big proponent of quality food, right? When we have access to that, but not everyone has access to it, or it's not, as feasible for everyone. But I think, sticking to whole foods or when we build out meals, trying to, the foundation of that is.
Well, if I train heavy, hard, and I eat whatever I want, it's not going to affect me. Is that true, or am I wrong here?
I mean, some people do that and they don't feel the impact, but there's going to be a time in their lives. Well, first of all, just because we're performing, we have a high output doesn't mean that it couldn't be any higher if you actually ate well with proper nourishment. So I think a lot of people just rely on that, like, oh, I'm good. Like, I'm a great athlete, but it's like, they could probably be even greater if they provided their body with the right.
For athletes,
nutrients.
you're talking about, you're right. For athletes who are into high performance, for the average individual, they don't care.
Right.
They just want to be able to eat what they want to eat. So if me, I'm not an expert like you, right? If somebody comes to me and says to me, Ellie, I want to eat what I want to eat, I'm like, no problem. Go kill yourself at the gym, or go climb a mountain 10 times, lift heavy. Like extreme with extreme. I mean, that's just makes sense to me. I'm like, you're going to go extreme with food, go extreme with training. I just don't see any other solution unless you think there is one.
Well, the problem with extreme is that it's not sustainable. So it's like you can only do extreme for so long. And think about, like, you see this in collegiate athletics, for example. It's like you have these young individuals in their young 20s, and they're doing so much fitness, right? Like they're training all the time, and they're just trying to get calories in, and they've got dining halls available to them. And so they just eat. And then they stop, they graduate, they're seniors, and then they move on to professional jobs that probably aren't in athletics for the majority of them. And now they don't know how to eat because all they knew was eating whatever they wanted and in large quantities because they had that high energy demand. And now they have a desk job, and we see it all the time where now. Well,
yeah, you have to adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and they don't know how to adjust. They don't know how to eat well. They don't know how to focus on the nutrient dense but lower calorie foods. And so, yeah, your method of just working out a ton and eating whatever you want probably works for people, but it's for a short period of time. And then you find yourself into middle age.
Sure.
And, and for women, the aging individual has a lot of more challenges, and it's an uphill battle. And so if you don't have those solid foundations earlier that you've practiced in your 20s and your 30s and early 40s, it just hits you in the face. And we see this a lot with our perimenopause, menopausal women, postmenopausal women. It's like, I'm struggling with all these things, but it's like, and same for, for aging men who are like, oh, my testosterone's low. Should I get on testosterone supplements? And it's like, what's the foundation of your diet like? Because if you just ride on the coattails of your nutrition habits from your 20s, and then all of a sudden you reach your 40s and 50s and you're kind of hit in the face with all these changes, it's like of course you're gonna.
So you're saying you shouldn't, if you're eating properly and you're like you said, you shouldn't have this issue with testosterone.
I'm not saying, no, you shouldn't. I'm not saying that, definitely not. But I'm just saying it makes that period of time or that stage of life much more manageable. You're not going to have as big of effects. I mean, of course, like everyone's hormonal profile is different around that time frame, but we know that proper nutrition plays a huge role in supporting your hormone health and hormone production and hormone balance. So it's like, we can't just neglect quality nutrition, and then because we'll see that.
So you in your practice, do you do like blood work for people and all this stuff? How do you check everything? What do you do? How do you?
Oftentimes I don't personally do the blood work, and especially most of my clients are remote, but when they get blood work done or they go to their PCP, they'll or go to do any like third party blood testing. They'll share that with me and we'll assess. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Okay. So what's next for you? What's going on?
What's next?
How do you, where can people get some information? And
actually this is perfect timing because I do have so with baby coming in a couple months, I'm so passionate about my work and I love what I do. And I definitely don't want to stop that. But at the same time, we talked about that work-life, family balance. So what I've been doing is kind of scaling back a little bit on one-on-one coaching, but doing more group programs so that I can work with more people and still have it be small group based where they're getting a lot of support from me. But how
does that work exactly?
So I have online curriculum. I've poured my heart and soul and my years of education and knowledge in nutrition into a curriculum, like an online self-paced curriculum, so that I'm teaching individuals. Like if you were to take this course, I would teach you what I would, instead of just doing everything for you and laying it out for you, I'm teaching you different strategies and approaches to take with your nutrition and how, and teaching you how to fish essentially, instead of just giving you the fish, but with the ongoing support to answer questions for you and make it help you with the personalization and the application of it. So the group program is definitely to help with the long-term approach to nutrition, is understanding, that education piece and understanding your needs and how to tailor them at any phase of life, right? Because even if you hire a coach, it's like, okay, right now my goals are this, but it's like in 2 years from now or a year from now, that's going to change. It's going to be something else. Or, okay, now I've entered menopause. What do I do now? And it's like, if you can have a solid foundation with nutrition, again, like something that I offer like through this group program, then you take control of your nutrition. You know what adjustments to make because you went through that education and that coaching process to understand more than just, the surface layer of
How is it different from me getting an app?
Oh, it has everything to do with getting an app, because an app's going to take one approach, and most of the time it's a very numerical approach. But think about it. Like, again, if I was like, Eli, okay, this app is telling you got to hit these numbers and these calories every single day. That only works if you can track like that. And most people can't, or most people can do that for a short period of time. But then what? So what I like to do and focus on is I like to give a lot of different methods for approaching your nutrition than just, hey, track your calories, track your macros. It's like, well, what if you can't do that? How can we visually assess meals, or how can we build out a strategic meal and snack schedule that works with your day-to-day life, your lifestyle, your work, your job, so that's the same thing, but your training, right, and help you to make those adjustments based off of what that looks like for yourself. And of course, like, you can ask questions in the group coaching calls each week so that we can talk through some of these nuances. But what I found is, what I'm really passionate about is helping individuals not just achieve their short-term goals, but really helping them to understand how to adjust their nutrition for any stage of life. And,
Does it still allow for personalization in a group setting?
There's, yes, it's kind of guiding you through that personalization instead of being like, Eli, do this. Like, it's more of, okay, you're presented with a couple options and you choose, I'm teaching you all these different methods. And you're like, you know what, that one resonates with me right now. But I'm learning about this other method, and actually, maybe 6 months from now, or after this family vacation we're going on this summer, I could see myself doing this other method and maybe tracking my intake a little bit more. So now you have a couple things to pull from, which is life, right? Life we can't just take one approach and adjust everything in our lives to make that work. We have to be willing to flex, and nutrition's all about consistency and sustainability. That's how we're going to.
And these separate programs, they can be tailored to, because you mentioned about, each individual has their own genetic makeup and whatever, their current status of their gut and their body, whatever. So does that answer those questions for them?
Yeah. And that's why, like, with the group programs, what I love about it is a lot of the education and presentation of materials is through those, through the lessons and modules that I've created for this program. But there's group coaching calls each week and chat access, like group support access, so that people can ask these questions that are like, okay, I'm learning all this. This is all opening my eyes to new things, but here's this specific scenario. What do you recommend in this? So there's absolutely like that coaching support. It's not just like, hey, have fun, good luck, applying this to yourself. But right. Again, you're presented with a lot of options to choose from.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm really excited about it. I've spent a lot of time building this out because I think regardless, even with one-on-one coaching, like, this is important information to have. So now it's just sharing all those tools with more individuals.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And let's keep learning.
Yes, let's do it. Thanks, Eli.